The Louvre Heist, How Thieves Stole $100 million in 8 minutes. Before we dive into tonight's insane story, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, how would you steal from the most guarded museum on Earth? It started just before sunrise in Paris. The streets were quiet, the sky still half asleep. Inside the Louvre, the night guards were doing what they did every night. Slow walks through echoing marble halls, the air thick with silence and history. No one expected anything unusual. After all, this was the Louvre, home to the Mona Lisa, the Venus de Milo, and the most secure alarms in Europe. But at exactly 4:12 a.m., a white utility truck rolled up to the riverside wall of the museum. It looked like a delivery van, nothing strange about that. Except this one carried something far more dangerous than boxes or paint buckets. On its back was a metal ladder lift, the kind used for moving furniture into Parisian apartments. Only this time, it was pointed directly toward a first-floor balcony, the Galerie d'Apollon, where France's royal jewels glittered in their glass cases. 3 figures stepped out, faces hidden under helmets. Their movements were quick, robotic, silent. They didn't talk. One checked a watch. Another unrolled black cable, plugging in a compact tool kit. The third, the smallest one, pulled out a portable grinder that buzzed faintly in the cold morning air. Within seconds, sparks flew. The grinder carved through the window lock, sending tiny orange stars across the stone wall. Then click. The lock gave way. A gloved hand pushed the glass open. Inside the gallery, golden light from the chandeliers shimmered across the display cases. The thieves moved like ghosts, their shadows bending over the relics of empires, crowns, necklaces, diamond brooches once worn by queens and emperors. The leader whispered, for minutes. Every second mattered. Their plan was perfect, every angle timed, every step rehearsed. Security cameras? Already looped by a signal jammer attached to the museum's Wi-Fi hub outside. Alarms? Silenced through a maintenance override stolen weeks earlier from an inside contact. They opened the first case with a suction tool. No smashing, no drama. Just cold, professional precision. Emeralds, rubies, diamond-encrusted gold. All vanished into small black bags. Then came the crown. Empress Eugenie's diadem, made of glittering diamonds and emerald leaves. The thief hesitated, admiring it for half a second. That was the mistake. The second bag slipped from his glove, clinking faintly against the marble. The sound was tiny, but loud enough to echo down the corridor. One of the guards on patrol turned his head. "Did you hear that?" he asked. His partner shrugged. "Probably cleaning staff." By the time they checked, it was too late. Outside, the truck was already moving. In total, the entire job had taken 8 minutes, 4 inside, 4 outside. The museum's motion detectors silent. The cameras looping. The jewels gone. When the guards reached the gallery, they found only a shattered window frame, a faint smell of burning metal, and a single crown lying on the floor, twisted and cracked from the fall. By sunrise, the story was already spreading across Paris. News stations broke the headlines, "The Louvre robbed, $100 million in royal jewels missing." The director of the museum stood in shock before the press, her voice trembling. "We are devastated. These jewels belong not just to France but to the world." But the strangest part wasn't what they stole. It was how easily they did it. Cameras had caught only partial footage, blurry figures, faces hidden, movements too smooth to trace. And yet, one thing didn't add up. The crown they left behind, Empress Eugenie's, had a single glove print marked in dust. DNA analysis would later reveal something that shocked investigators. It belonged to someone who had already been inside the Louvre before. A registered security technician, hired just 2 weeks before the heist. The heist wasn't just a robbery. It was an inside job. By the time the sun rose over Paris, the Louvre looked less like a museum and more like a war zone of flashing lights and police tape. Dozens of officers, journalists, and museum staff crowded the courtyard, their voices bouncing off centuries-old stone. The director of the Louvre stood at the entrance, pale and trembling, her voice shaking as she said, "This is not just a theft. This is a national tragedy." Inside, detectives from the French Art Crime Unit, the BRB, walked through the Galerie d'Apollon in disbelief. 8 display cases had been opened with surgical precision. No alarms, no alerts, no forced doors except the single balcony window. It didn't look like chaos. It looked like choreography. Detective Arnaud Villiers, a quiet man with gray hair and a sharp memory, studied the scene like a painter studying his own work. "They knew exactly what they were doing," he murmured, "and exactly where to go." One of the forensic techs lifted a broken crown from the floor. You'll want to see this, sir. Inside the metal rim, under a shattered emerald leaf, they found it, a partial glove print. Faint but clear. When run through the national database, the results stunned everyone in the room. Leo Marchand, 34 years old. Contract worker. Employed by the museum's security maintenance department only 2 weeks earlier. No prior criminal record. Lived in a quiet suburb outside Paris. When detectives visited his apartment, they found everything neatly in place. Clothes folded, plants watered, rent paid. But his bed was untouched. His phone was off. His passport missing. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. That night, French news channels exploded with theories. Inside job suspected in $100 million Louvre robbery. Who is Leo Marchand, the man who knew the cameras? Every major outlet in Europe wanted a piece of the story. But deep inside the investigation, Villiers knew something wasn't right. Leo wasn't the kind of man who could plan a multimillion-dollar heist on his own. Someone had used him, or scared him. Then came the next twist. A day later, security footage surfaced, but not from the museum. A convenience store camera just a few streets away from the Louvre had caught a white utility truck speeding by at 4:19 a.m., just 7 minutes after the break-in. The driver wore a construction vest. In the passenger seat was a figure with a dark hoodie, and a visible tattoo on the side of his neck. The tattoo was the logo of a Paris gang known for high-end thefts, Les Corbeaux, the Ravens. Villiers frowned. The Ravens hadn't been active for years. Their last known member had been caught in Marseille in 2018. But the connection was too clear to ignore. He ordered an immediate search for the truck. Within hours, police located it abandoned near the Seine River, not far from the Bastille district. The ladder lift had been torched. Inside, forensic teams found melted jewelry boxes, burned gloves, and a piece of a black duffel bag, the kind used by museum staff for tool storage. DNA tests confirmed 2 separate profiles. One matched Leo. The other, unknown. 2 days later, Interpol flagged a name. A man caught on airport surveillance leaving Paris under a fake passport. Rami El-Khader, 39, a smuggler tied to stolen art rings across North Africa and the Middle East. He was heading for Algiers. The French police were too late. But while investigators scrambled, a local journalist named Camille Desrosiers received an anonymous message. Just a single line and an attachment. The message read, "You're looking in the wrong place. The jewels never left Paris." Attached was a photo. A dark, blurry shot of a stone tunnel, water dripping down the walls, and something glittering faintly in the background. Camille showed the image to police, but it was dismissed as a prank. Still, something about it haunted her. The architecture in the photo looked familiar. The old catacombs beneath Paris, miles of tunnels once used to store bones and artifacts. And then, the second message came. Leo didn't plan this. He tried to stop it. By the time Camille realized what those words meant, the story had already taken a darker turn. Because the next morning, on the banks of the Seine, police found a body floating against the rocks. A man in a black hoodie, face barely recognizable, but with a faint tattoo of a raven on his neck. And pinned to his chest, a museum security badge. Paris woke to a chilling headline, "Gang member found dead, tied to Louvre Heist." The story spread faster than the morning light over the Seine. News vans swarmed the bridges, helicopters hovered above the city, and crowds gathered near the Louvre, staring up at the now-sealed balcony window where the greatest art robbery of the century had begun. Detective Villiers stood by the riverbank, staring at the corpse that had washed ashore. The tattoo of a raven confirmed it, one of Les Corbeaux, the gang long thought to have vanished. But the security badge pinned to the man's chest made no sense. It wasn't his. It belonged to Leo Marchand. Yet Leo was still missing. That single detail lit a fuse inside Villiers' mind. This wasn't a gang robbery, he said under his breath. This was a setup. The police searched abandoned warehouses, art storage units, and even the Louvre's own archives. Nothing. Then late that night, Villiers received a call from the journalist Camille Desrosiers, the one who had received the anonymous emails. "I think I found where your jewels went," she whispered. The call was traced to Rue de la Tomissoire, near the entrance to the old catacombs. Villiers rushed there with his team. The smell of wet limestone filled the air. A single metal gate stood half open, its lock freshly cut. They descended into the darkness, their flashlights slicing through the tunnels where skulls and bones lined the walls like silent guards. The echo of dripping water followed them. Camille was waiting at the bottom, holding her phone up for light. "It's down here," she said, voice shaking. "The man who messaged me sent another photo. It's this exact passage. They followed her deeper until the air turned cold. At the end of the tunnel was a wooden crate covered in dust. Villiers knelt, prying it open with a crowbar. Inside, wrapped in black velvet, were 7 pieces of jewelry, glittering in the flashlight beam like stars pulled underground. The missing Louvre jewels. Everyone froze. The detective's heartbeat thundered in his ears. "Who brought them here?" he asked. Camille looked down. The messages, they came from Leo's email. But the address was routed through 4 fake servers. He wanted the jewels found, just not by the people hunting him. As they radioed for backup, a sound echoed from the shadows behind them, footsteps. Heavy. Slow. "Leo?" Camille whispered. From the darkness, a man stepped forward, dirty, pale, his clothes torn. His eyes darted around like a trapped animal. "Don't call the police," he said. "They'll kill me." Villiers raised his flashlight, and there he was. Leo Marchand. Alive. He looked exhausted, his hands shaking. "I didn't steal them," he muttered. "They made me rewire the cameras. I thought it was a drill. I didn't know they were real thieves until that night." "Who's they?" Villiers asked. Leo hesitated, glancing toward the tunnel mouth. "A woman named Clara Voss. She's the real one behind it. She used to work for the museum's insurance firm. She planned the heist, and she killed the Raven when he tried to run." Before Villiers could react, a gunshot cracked through the tunnel. The flashlight shattered. Screams echoed. When the lights came back on, Clara was gone, her footprints vanishing into the maze of catacombs. Leo was hit in the shoulder, barely conscious. Camille pressed a cloth against the wound, whispering, "Stay with us." Hours later, when the police finally sealed the tunnels, Clara was nowhere to be found. Only the jewels were recovered. The Louvre reopened weeks later under tighter security. The jewels returned to their cases, polished, catalogued, admired. But one glass case remained empty, the crown of Empress Eugenie. It was never found. Some say Clara escaped Paris through the same tunnels that once hid the jewels. Others believe she melted the crown and vanished across the Mediterranean. But in the Louvre surveillance room, a guard swears that sometimes late at night the cameras flicker, and for just a second, a woman in a white coat can be seen walking through the Galerie d'Apollon, stopping to stare at that one empty glass case. And then, she disappears. The Louvre heist was over, but its shadow still haunts the City of Lights. The end.